Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you the process of my second doll painting, which has the title As the World Falls Down, which is of course the title of the song with the same name by David Bowie for the Labyrinth. Real quick before we start, if you like to watch longer painting tutorials from me, head over to my Patreon page and select the $5 reward tier. You get instant access to over 30 exclusive painting tutorials, and I answer all of your questions. You are also the first to see my newest work, exclusive insight into my working process and my studio, and helpful art material posts. For $15 and more, you get beautiful art surprises, fine art prints, original watercolor illustrations, and much more. And if you like to own a print of As the World Falls Down, I have a limited edition of 20 fine art prints available in my online store, both in the basic and the embellished version. The embellished version is embellished with silver acrylics and glitter to match the original and to make it unique for itself. So if you like to have that, just head over to my shop. I decided to just dedicate all my doll paintings to one of my favorite movies of all time, which is The Labyrinth, because it really influenced me highly when I was a child, and I recently watched it in German, although I really wanted to watch it in English because I really want to be watching a movie as close, or just the original of the movie and not the German version of it. Although our German voice actors are really doing a great job, and I think in Germany they are really one of the best voice actors, but still I want to listen to the original, so I will totally watch that movie again. And yeah, when I recently watched it, I was like, okay, you know, like old childhood movies, they are never as good as you imagined they were, and you will probably be totally disappointed and just forget about it. But no, absolutely not. Like, this movie was as great and as captivating and as enchanting as the first time I watched it, and just such an amazing magical world. And I wish today they would make more of those old movies, and not like, although I absolutely love the computer animated 3D CGI technology, I really just also love puppets, and like this movie were just made with puppets, and the backgrounds were all painted, and it was super extraordinary. Even at that time, I just wanted to learn a bit more about the Labyrinth, and apparently it was a flop, so the movie didn't make like the amount of money they paid for the production, and it really depressed the director Jim Henson, because it was just such a painful production of the movie. But luckily it gained like kind of a cult following, and people just bought the DVD every Christmas, and so just the movie really got what it deserved. And they even published a manga about the Labyrinth, and I can totally recommend you to just read more about it. I just wish they would make more of those movies today, and it would be wonderful. I also want to thank all of you for your amazing comments for my last doll video, because I was really I didn't know how I can find all those ball jointed dolls. Yeah, I now know how they are properly called, and you gave me all those amazing links, and I went through them and I looked up all the sites. Thank you so much, super helpful. And yes, I already knew Marina Bichkova, who is a famous Russian doll artist, and I already contacted her before I even started to paint my last doll painting, but she didn't reply, because I don't know if it's legally okay to just paint a photograph of a doll that a doll artist or just a company made to sell this piece. So it's basically like promotion material for them, and I'm not sure if I can just paint it exactly as the photo looks and then sell it on my own and make prints of it. So what I ended up doing for this painting, because I also couldn't contact Elisa Filipova. I already followed her on Facebook, but she didn't accept my friend request. I think it is just that sometimes you don't see your friend requests, or just people are not that into Facebook. So some artists like me, I'm really on social media like all day long because it's my business, and I really contact like customers and people that want maybe to buy a print or just want to make a commission, and they contact me through social media. So I'm always present there, and I don't miss any emails or important like requests. But not everyone has like the same business model or is even interested in social media, and I fear that like that doll artist also might just not be on social media or just didn't see my request. So I just didn't want to copy another photo of her because I didn't know if I can really take that. So what I ended up doing was what I do most of the time, is that I Frankensteined a Photoshop mock-up. So I basically took a head from here, and then like the body and the dress from another reference, and the hands from another reference, and then make a whole different background and change like the colors so that you can't really say, okay, this is the photograph of like that person, and so this is legally okay if you kind of change the motive so much that you can't really recognize the initial reference. So, and this is what I did with this painting, As the World Falls Down, and I really like the outcome, and I definitely like the pink hair, and I wanted to experiment with hairstyles, and I'm excited to make my next doll paintings because it was so much fun, and I also have to make a different composition with more background, with a whole body, and I also incorporate all those lace and details on the dress and little hair bows and bands, because this really makes for me a like proper doll. Like a doll has to have beautiful clothing, and it has to be like in a maybe Victorian style, and I really want to kind of imagine how it looks. So I also did a lot of sketches beforehand, before this painting, just to see if I am able to make such paintings out of my mind. And on the sketch it kind of worked, but I know that when I do it with a reference it would get better. So I just put all the sketches aside, and I made the Photoshop mock-up in the end and just used this as a reference. And I'm thinking of just showing you all my sketches that I did in the past few months in a sketchbook tour video. I don't really have a sketchbook, so they are just sketches on paper, but I will maybe put them in a folder and then show them to you, so that will probably come up soon. But anyways, so this doll was a lot of fun to do, and for the background I wanted to use a lot of flowers. I just wanted to fill the backgrounds with flowers, and I used the exact same technique I use for oil painting flowers. So this was really crazy because it worked so well. I didn't expect that. And in the background I had those white, I think they are roses, I can't remember, I think they are roses. So under the butterfly there are like these white flowers, and for this I used gouache. So I basically first just filled or painted the dark parts of the flowers, and then when I thought, okay, now I have laid down the dark parts and the shadows, and also the shadows that you have around the petals, I let them down, and I really make sure that I always follow the form of the blossom. So every blossom is round, and it has actually a three-dimensional form, and it has a dark center most of the time, and there is shadow casting around the object of the blossom in the bottom area when the light comes from top, of course. So I'm making sure that I kind of get this three-dimensional shape right and place all those flower petals around it. And in the first layers I do it with watercolor, and I obviously only can get darker, but then in the last layers I use white gouache, and this is my magic trick and the best thing ever. So white gouache isn't super opaque, so if you don't use it pure it will definitely get gray and it's not really vibrant. But it didn't matter because those flower petals, they are very soft looking and they don't stand out, so they are kind of the color values are very close to each other. So it's not really white, then it is not really dark, and the shadows are not black. So it's basically just the color values are so close together that it looks like almost gray. And this makes the softness. And the gouache paint just does exactly what I wanted, because I didn't want to have those strong white petals. Instead, I wanted to have this soft and light petals, and they merged perfectly into these flowers. So my last step was that I just placed those petals around my already like prepared form of the blossom. So I have like a circle of the blossom, and then I just placed those petals with white gouache around this form and over this form, and it looked perfect. So I was like kind of surprised because it worked so well, and I didn't have to do so much work. So it basically like emerged from itself. And the same technique I also used for the peonies in the lower part of the painting, but there it was a bit difficult because it wasn't gray, and they had a big contrast to the kind of foliage and to the greenery under it. So this was a little bit more difficult, and I had to pay more attention to the actual shape of the flowers. But the most difficult thing of this painting was her blouse with all these folds and the shadows and the stitches and the lace, and this was definitely challenging. And how I tackled it was that I just slowly built up the values and the colors. So although it was kind of a beige white blouse, there are a lot of more colors in it that one would expect. So I had like red, I had yellows, I had grays, I had blues, and I just layered all these colors over each other and used both a wet and wet technique, or just layered it over like the bottom layer when I wanted to make folds, for example. And you can totally use both techniques perfectly, because the Fabriano paper that I use is very high quality, and the color that you put on it sinks into the paper and it doesn't come off. So unless you use a lot of pigment and dark color, the paper sucks in all the color and it's kind of sealed. So you can easily add another layer on top of it and make a whole new layer with a wet and wet technique. So the wet and wet technique is perfect for smooth gradients. It's the only way to use smooth gradients, and I learned it from Lanovan. So I tried it out, it works perfectly. And when you want to have clear shapes, you don't use the wet and wet technique, just place the shape you want on the place you want it, and then it automatically creates like a very clean and sharp edge. So, and with this blouse, I definitely had to combine those both techniques. So I had smooth gradients, and I wanted to have clean shapes for the folds and for like the wrinkles in the blouse. So I just layered both techniques over each other and continued the process and repeated the process until I had the result I wanted to have. And then in the end, I used my color pencil technique. I also used the color pencils in between because I kind of build up the way until I reached the result of the reference. Sometimes I think, okay, this entire area has to be darker. And when I want to tint an area dark, I don't use color pencils because color pencils have a grain and watercolors have a very equal look to it, and they make a beautiful uniform shape. And I didn't want to have any grain when I just want to fill or tint an entire area. So I'm just changing between color pencils and watercolor until it is perfect. And I used the same technique with her hair. So I just in the end decided, okay, the right side of her hair has to be like 3 tones darker, and then I just tinted the whole area with watercolor. And for the butterfly, I have a super perfect technique which works so well, and this is a wet and wet technique. So I just basically fill out the form of the entire butterfly, and then I go with a smaller brush into my watercolor pen and use a lot of pigment. For example, when I want to have dark spots on the butterfly, then I just carefully dip the brush into the wet area I just placed on my paper, and then those little dots perfectly make this beautiful gradient and blending, and I don't have to do anything anymore. So it just goes automatically. And this is like the perfect technique if you want to make butterflies in an easy and like fast way, and it looks good. The only thing you have to pay attention to is the form of the butterfly, so you have to get the form and the shape right. But the inside, like the pattern, you can kind of let it be and let it emerge from the watercolor itself. So it just flows into a beautiful gradient, and I just leave it as it is. So you have a certain control over it, so you can decide where you want to place spots and these patterns, but how they flow in the end, it's random. And I just left those shapes on various areas in the painting, in the sky, for example, or on her dress, because this is what makes watercolor so unique and like, yeah, special, that you have these beautiful shapes. So do not ever destroy them. I certainly tend to overwork my pieces and go over the shapes, but I really have to restrain myself and just let them be, and let them be as beautiful as they are. Oh, and something I wanted to say to the dolls, I forgot to say. So I basically found one model, one variant of a doll that I really love, and the doll is called Zaol. So it's like Zaoll, and this is, I don't know, but the face reminds me of an famous actress from Korea, I think. I don't know her name, but I've seen her in like a lot of movies, and it's like a very special face. So she has like a very round nose and kind of not really full lips, but rather small and thin lips and kind of sad eyes. And this face is, oh, when I see it, I'm like captivated and hypnotized. And I found the exact model on a doll page. So on one of the pages you gave me. So I'm super thankful. This is amazing. I just went through the page and looked for all the models I wanted to have. And yeah, this is like the Zaol doll. But the thing is that I also watched like videos of these dolls on YouTube, and also just looked for this exact model on Google. And the interesting thing is that if you don't use like the perfect light on this doll and the perfect makeup and wig and dress, it just looks like plastic. So I saw just a video of those dolls. They were actually like super tall as well, so I think like 60 centimeters, like a small child, for example. But if you don't use like the professional photography light, and you don't have the skills for photography, the photo of the doll doesn't look good. So there are some really talented photographers that succeed in taking pictures of these dolls that look exactly like humans. It's like so uncanny, and I really love those pictures of the dolls. And I just thought, okay, I can do these pictures. I know how to use my camera, but the doll also has to have the perfect makeup. So I just saw all these pictures of these Zaol doll, and they all had different makeup, and you can order them with like pre-made makeup, but it looks ugly. So it didn't look like I would buy it. So like the lips weren't really painted well, and it didn't look really natural or like special to me, and I don't want to paint a doll myself. So even if I am a painter and a skilled painter, I am totally sure that if I had to paint those dolls, I would totally mess them up. So I would probably splatter paint on their faces, or I would like, I don't know, I would probably break it, and it would be a catastrophe. So I will not do it by myself, or if I wanted to do that, I will probably have to watch like a bunch of YouTube videos beforehand to just know which colors I have to use for the makeup and which brushes. And I think you also have to use like airbrush tools to get those gradients, so it's like a science for itself, and I don't feel ready to do this. And also wigs. So on this side there were also a category where I could buy wigs for the exact doll, and I had like the pictures I found on the internet was all those dolls I love and all those wigs, and I thought, okay, let's find a wig that resembles the pictures I found, like roughly. But there weren't any of those wigs. I didn't like any of the wigs they had in store, and this was like the largest doll site. I forgot the name, but it was one of the sites you suggested me, and it was like a large, well-known doll site. And like half of the wigs were sold out, and the other half I didn't like. So I was like, okay, yeah, I will not purchase at all because I didn't like the wigs. And like, I think the dresses were okay, but the wigs and the makeup really didn't convince me. So I think I will continue with just picking pictures from the internet, or if I'm really lucky and I find like the exact doll I love, I will probably buy it. But until now, or just for now, I will kind of Frankenstein my paintings so that they resemble my idea. So yeah, that was it for today, and I hope you could get something out of the video and it was interesting for you. And if you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I hope I see you on the next one. Bye bye!